lesson in computer animation, and what we're going to be working on right now is creating a looping background movie clip, and then what we'll get into after that is creating a walk cycle for our character so we can have a continuous animation of a walking character with a looping background. And as you can see, we've added some different objects. Got a couple cacti floating through here. We'll talk about how to add different objects and moving at different rates depending on their size, and it'll create the illusion that the images further away from you are truly further away because they're moving slower. Alright, so in order to get this assignment started, we will start with a new document. And the tool we want to start with today is going to be the pen tool, and we're going to make kind of that rock bottom of this landscape, if you will. And so we'll go ahead and take the pen tool and make kind of like a jagged line going across the bottom, maybe 1/3 or so of your picture. And again, kind of jagged, rocky, somewhat pointed of a landscape. And then we will go all the way down to the bottom and go across and then up to where we started. And something that's really important, and you know, we'll take a look at this closer later, is that this bottom line is actually perfectly straight across, and that worked out really well. So what you want to make sure is that when you are drawing this shape, that this line that goes across the bottom is a straight line, and it looks pretty good from here. So what I'm going to do is take this whole line drawing and actually going to fill it with maybe a tan color, but I'm going to also make this into a gradient. Actually, what I'd like to do here is go ahead to a linear gradient and then change these controls to make this like a light tan at the top, and then a, let's see, more like a darker brown at the bottom, and that looks pretty good. Let's try that out. I do want to delete my outline, so what I will do is go ahead and select this, hold shift and click in the middle so that I only have the outline selected, and then I press delete. Now something else that I can tell I'm going to have a tough time with is because these aren't at the same levels, I will have to change that. So we want to make this level the same as this, and we'll get there in a minute. So next thing I want to do is I want to transform or rotate this gradient. So I'll take the gradient transform tool. I want to rotate it so that it's going up and down. There we go. So that gradient goes top to bottom. And so that is all set. What I'm going to do is take this layer, and I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to move this over here. Oops. Move this over. And what I need to make sure that is happening is that this, in fact, lines up with this point right here. Alright, and as long as that is the case, we should be able to work this. So I'm actually going to delete this original and just keep this, now that I know that this should be the right height, because now that this corner is adjusted, we can actually use it. So I'm going to go ahead and take this, and remember, this first rock layer should just be just wider than your stage. So this is good to copy. I'm going to Window C and Window V, or Edit, Paste. Paste in center, paste in place. It's not exactly what we want, so we'll take paste in center, and we'll move this into place so that we can see that that ends at right at the same point there. Okay, so I'll zoom in and check. Looks like there's no gap in between that. So this should be good. And what we will do is go ahead and save this as a movie clip or a graphic altogether. So I got both pieces selected. I'm going to press F8 and I'm going to call this the rocks. And this is going to be our foreground layer. So it will be on the top. If we want to draw something behind that, we would want to have it underneath. So this next layer is going to be more of the hills. And that layer is going to be just behind this layer, the rocks in front. And again, we're going to use the pen tool. And we're going to make this a little bit of a simpler layer. So just kind of, maybe 1, 2, and maybe just a little bit shallower. And again, this layer we actually want to have be a little bit shorter. I'm going to make this maybe go to like right here. So we want to have this be shorter than the stage, or shorter than the mountains, because we want it to move quicker. Things that are slower rather. Things that are further away from us should move slower. I'm going to turn off the visibility on this rock layer so I can make sure that everything is okay with this here. Oops, that just moved off a little bit. Not quite what I wanted. So again, we have to make sure that the bottom edge here is straight. So there, I have a snap when it goes too straight. So something that you can do if you want to make sure it snaps, snap a line, make sure that's turned on in the view. Not snap to grid, we don't have any grids. Snap to guides is also turned on, and snap to objects. Okay, so I think snap a line is the most important one to have on. So if your bottom line doesn't seem straight, make sure that you go back and edit a little bit with that. So okay, so I'm going to take this layer, which is going to be the hills. I'm going to fill it again with a gradient. Actually, we'll just go right over here. We'll go linear gradient. We'll take these colors again. We want about a little bit darker color on the bottom, darker bluish green there, and then a lighter bluish green at the top, maybe a little more like that. And we can fill that in here. We do want to change the way it is rotated, so we'll rotate it straight up. And then we can also take this whole layer again by clicking on the first keyframe. We'll shift click to get rid of the selection of the middle, and then delete to delete everything else. Then I'm just going to kind of mouse over here and edit the shape of this hill a little bit so that it is more hilly. And again, the other thing I need to make sure happens here is that this point here is at the same point as this. So again, I'm going to copy this and paste it down. I'm going to move it over to the side here and see if I can get these to line up. Alright, so I know that this point actually needs to be down a little lower there. So what I think I want this shape to then do is kind of dip down so that hill kind of grows gradually up there. Alright, so I can delete this original piece now, and then what I'm going to do is copy this hill actually twice to make it a little bit longer for the hills layer. Okay, so oops, I accidentally clicked delete there. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to go edit copy, or Command C and copy and paste. Get that into place here. Just nudge it over a couple times with the keyboard, and I'm going to paste again. And I'm going to move this into the correct place down here. And I just want to zoom in on these points where they connect and make sure that they really are aligned right, because it's going to make a difference later on. So I want to make sure that that slope is really pretty much matched up. So that looks good. This looks like it wants me to move a little bit closer in. There, that looks lined up pretty good. Okay. So now what we should be looking at is our stage with some hills and some rocks. Okay, what we need to make these do is have motion tweens. Okay, so that these kind of motion tweens go across the back of our scene here. We're going to add in actually just 2 more layers first before we really get into that part of it. Or really just 1 more, actually. 1 more, and then we're going to give the background a color. This one, we'll just call this background. And then what we want to do with this layer, again, we'll just take our pen tool and we'll just draw one quick kind of like a box up here. And we'll give it a fill color of something like a light blue color. I'll take my fill bucket and fill in that. I don't really like that tone of light blue, so I'm going to tone it down a little bit. It's a little too bright for my taste. Again, deleting the outlines. Like I said, I'm going to tone this down to make it a light blue. Sort of like that works. And then again, we'll change the background color of this white to something as well. And actually what I was going to do to this background layer here is to make this appear more kind of like an atmosphere, almost like cloudiness, is I was going to turn the opacity down of this just a little bit, so that I'm going to take the alpha slider here and maybe turn that down to like 80%, so that you can sort of see through it. I'm going to maybe take that down a little bit further, 50% or so. And I don't think it was actually, oh, there we go. Take it down a little bit further. Okay. And I do kind of want to change this just a slight bit so it's at a bit of an angle. Yeah, a bit of a curve. Okay, so, oops, meant to zoom in a little bit. Alright, so now we have basically the gist of our scene. I think one thing I skipped over was transforming our hills into a graphic, so I'm going to press F8 and I'm going to make that into the hills graphic right there. And now what we need to do is we are going to make these kind of motion tween across. So when I look at my demo animation, I went to 150 frames. So we'll do the same with this one. We will go out to 150 frames. We will give ourselves a keyframe at each of them. So I'll press F6. And now what we need to do is we will take the rocks first, and we can move this graphic all the way over to the other side. So we want to take it, and I'm just going to nudge by holding Shift and pressing the arrow key. I'm moving this over, and then I'm going to also take the hills layer, and I'm going to move this all the way over. Alright, and then what we'll do is go in between here and add motion tweens. Alright, now what we should see is our background moving. So let's take a look at what this looks like. Right now, it looks to me as if both the hills and the rocks are moving at the same frame rate. And so I think that I need to take a look here at my example and go back and see why that might be so. I think that really when I'm looking at this, it seems that the foreground is bigger than the midground, and in this example my midground, the hills, actually ended up longer than the rocks, and that is not exactly what we wanted them to do. So going back into this animation, we're going to take the hills layer, and we're actually going to take out the tween here, And what I want to do is actually I'm going to go back and clear the very last keyframe of this this layer as well, because I'm going to want to make an adjustment to this graphic, the hills graphic. So I'm going to go ahead and take my transform tool. Alright, so I get the boxes here, and I'm going to just kind of squish this in so it ends up being a little bit shorter than the rock layer. Now it should be shorter than it in order to really create the illusion of the foreground moving quicker than the background. So if it's farther away, it should be moving slower. I'm going to take it in just another smidge. Alright, so this should make for a happier animation now. I'm going to go out to 150 frames again, re-add in this keyframe, F6, and then I'll go in between and create a motion tween. And now let's see what I have here. Okay. Oh, I think that I jumped the gun a little bit, and I added a motion tween when I had not actually moved this object, the hills. So I need to move those over, and that should do it. Oops. I do want to save this project. I had not planned on doing it quite yet, but instinctively I did. So I'm going to save it as background loop demo. Alright, and let's play this again in preview style really quick. Again, we have the rocks looking like they're moving a little bit quicker in the front, and then the background moving a little bit slower, so that works. I do think that I had the frame rate probably turned up a bit here, 24, so we do want to double what we have in here as 12, and then this will look a lot closer to what we were originally going for. Now let's watch this again and make sure all the way through that we don't see any jumps in our animation, that it looks like it smoothly loops all the way around. So you do see a slight jump at the end there. So it's going to need a little bit of tweaking. I'll get into that in the second part video, as I think that this is probably enough for a part 1. So here we go, and taking off into the second part. I will see you there.